You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I seem to notice that people that don't normally get concerned in politics, I know some people who just absolutely have no interest, but are interested when their internet freedom is challenged. You know what I mean? So this.
Yeah, the internet, it appeals to such a huge variety of groups and people, and it's an amazing platform, and I get really excited doing all the dumb crap there is to do online, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
And also engaging in some really interesting discourse. So I mean, from point A to point B, there's a lot of room for people of diverse interests and creeds to come together.
Yeah. Well, right on. It's about our freedom, and it's just fantastic to have openmedia.ca leading the charge against the latest evil twist in the conservative agenda.
Well, thank you.
So, thanks for talking to us, Lindsey.
Why did this minister decide to use child victims as political cover for this bill? There is not a single mention of children anywhere in this bill, and yet yesterday at 10 a.m. this bill was called lawful access. By 11 they were being hammered in the media, and by 11:15 they changed it to the child, protecting child from internet predators. I think it is about the most base thing that you can do, which is to use child victims and then turn around and blame anybody who raises a question. He was saying that anybody who's raised a question about this is on the side of child pornographers. It is disgusting.
So if he resorts to public personal attacks like that, is it fair that he is subjected to personal attacks like we're seeing today?
I think Minister Taves has denigrated his office, and I think he's lost a lot of credibility. You see this man backpedaling furiously now to try and seem reasonable. Well, it's hard to sound reasonable when you say that anybody who disagrees with you is a child pornographer. So the minister changed the name of the bill at the last minute. He's using child victims as political cover, and I want to know, who changed that bill? Was that Vic Taves' idea, or was that some flunky, or was that the Prime Minister who said, we need some cover, Vic, because Canadians don't buy our snooping bill?
And that was Charlie Angus talking about Vic Taves and the snooping bill. How you doing, Mike?
Mm-hmm. Hey. Yeah, it's kind of, I think it's funny that they're changed from the name Lawful Access to the Protecting Children from Online Predators Act. Or bill.
Charlie totally
I think
called
that's
it.
Just an even bigger backfire.
Charlie totally called it. He was trying to. He stated correctly that the Conservatives knew that they had a tough one the past year, without arousing the ire of Canadians, and they decided to try to silence that by equating people that opposed this bill with child pornographers. It just didn't work. Apparently, It just didn't work good enough.
I wonder, it kind of makes me think right away, too, of how insulated are the Conservatives? Do they really believe that their majority in Parliament is supported by a majority of Canadians? Because if they believe that, if they've really talked themselves into that, they're forgetting that only 24% of the entire population voted for the Conservatives. I mean, that also includes people ineligible to vote, people too young and things like that. But I mean, they they've got to realize that their support isn't by a majority of Canadians. And when they do things like this, they're going to hear, obviously, it's kind of a catch-22. Harper is the worst thing to happen to Canada, and in a way, it's really woke Canadians up, I think, and made them realize that Canadian politics does matter to Canadians. The whole issue of economics and things is something that we have to deal with on a world level and a national level, but also the government still has, this is where our legislation is passed. And it's not always about economics. It's, internet spying and prisons and all these things the government that is doing. We got to keep them, bound to something reasonable and not allow them to get away with all this stuff. So in a way, I think Stephen Harper has made Canadian politics something that more people are beginning to have interest in, even though it's for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
But
see, attacking the internet and freedom on the internet is definitely a way to wake up a whole bunch of people that have been uninterested, to say the least, in the past.
Exactly. All these people out there in the Occupy movement who are so much standing on social media as their foundation for organizing. Wake up, everybody! Politics matters.
Yeah, it does.
Think about who you vote for in a few years.
This is a very real way for politics to touch people's real lives. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because, I'm sorry, a lot of people do things on the internet that they don't necessarily want the government in on. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And for example, the gamers were aroused by the Stop the Meter campaign because the Conservative government was going to allow the big ISP providers to start regulating the amount of bandwidth people could use with their subscription and throttling certain connections, right? For example, those gaming sites and Netflix are huge draws on the resources of the networks.
That one was just another way for the it seems like taxation in a sense. It's like a way to make people pay more for their internet use.
Yeah. And your average basement dwelling player of World of Warcraft that's on there for 23.9 hours a day, you know what I mean? Sucks up a lot of bandwidth, and that person does not want to lose that. That person's an addict. There's a legion of those people that kind of woke up one day and said, wait a second, we better get involved in the resistance to this. So
exactly.
It's the same kind of people that are going to be very, very strongly against this, even if they never cared about anything to do with politics before. These people are waking up, which is good. Thing.
And you know what else? The other, it's kind of gotten lost in all this because people are so upset about this child protection from pornographers bill or whatever they're calling it. But there's also the copyright issue that's at hand right now in Parliament, and in the case of the copyright issue, I mean, I think you can definitely say that people that are making the legislation don't really understand the internet. But in this case, I will go one further, and I will say that the way that the lawful access bill was put together, I think the Conservatives know damn well what they're doing. I mean, I think that Canada in Stephen Harper has their own Richard Nixon. This guy's paranoid. Yeah. He wants to see what everyone has to say about him. He's got people countering positions on internet forums for him. I mean, he is a control fanatic, and he knows damn well what this bill would do for him. It has nothing to do with protecting children from child pornographers.
Yeah.
I mean, the laws are out there already to make sure that despicable action doesn't happen, and when it does, that people are properly prosecuted for it. This is about control. That's what it's about.
Absolutely.
So I actually think that the Conservatives know what they're doing.
They know exactly what they're doing. And this whole thing about sticking their foot in it and having to retreat and then coming back with something different. This is maybe a negotiating position that they've taken here. They can introduce the worst conceivable bill which is
And
worse than what they
and then
want,
get
and come
something
back with
that's
exactly what they want.
mildly
And say,
palatable.
yeah, like, well, okay, well, at least we compromised. Here you go. We compromised a bit.
And hopefully this is the worst case scenario too. I mean, I hope that they don't later on suck the opposition parties in, get something passed that isn't as bad as this, but still has problems with it, and then point back and say, oh, well, we put this to committee and the opposition parties had, an excellent chance here because I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to see that happen either. So
No,
let's hope that
terrible.
in committee that, that the opposition
Yeah.
puts up the same kind of strong stance that Canadians, regular everyday Canadians from all across this country have put out there, and let them know that you're not gonna get support for a bill if you just water it down a little bit and still allow it to do a lot of these things.
Exactly. I have truly enjoyed hearing the hue and cry that has come from the Canadian people in the past couple of weeks about this bill. I just hope to hear the same one when they come back with a slightly more acceptable or a slightly less unacceptable bill.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It'll just be it's round 2, like you said.
Yeah.
Round 1.
I hope
Canada,
we're just as
Canadian
loud next
citizens
time,
won.
because until the Conservative government cannot do a single thing without a warrant, without judicial oversight, then it should be a no deal. We have to fight that. What they can do in this bill as presented right now, what they can do without a warrant is it's worse than I originally thought when I talked to Lindsey. I must admit there was a couple of holes in my homework there. I was of the impression that they needed law enforcement to exercise the right to gain this information without a warrant.
And I think it
It's
actually
worse.
just says
It's
security
worse.
officials.
No,
does it
it's not. It's government appointed officials.
There
As
you
in,
go.
the Stephen Harper can unilaterally decide who has the right to view your materials. Now, do you mind if I go a little bit off on a speculative tangent here?
Let's hear it.
Okay, I'm not a conspiracy-minded person. I don't really like to do this too often, but I want to explain a scenario which makes sense. Okay, that is possible. I'm not saying it's likely, but it's very possible given the powers that the Conservatives are trying to grab to themselves. Okay, in conjunction, this Protecting Children from Internet Predators bill, in conjunction with changes to the copyright law that they're passing, would give the Conservatives a way to bankrupt every single person who doesn't agree with them. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, right now, an ISP has the right to refuse a request for people's identification to correlate with ISPs that are provided. Right? You never hear a single example ever of an ISP saying no to a warrant demanding the ISP an identity of a person who's been to a kiddie porn site. That is just unthinkable, as if an ISP would ever do that. Say, if a cop came and said, we have a warrant here for this IP address here, we need to know who that was who's been downloading kiddie porn and providing kiddie porn. Do you think an ISP would ever say no to that?
Especially the ones that are providing kiddie porn. I mean, I think they're going to be like, here's the IP address. This is the person.
And help us get it. Yeah, help us get it off. Thank you very much. We don't want that on our servers. We don't want to be connecting to it in any way, shape, or form. I think everybody, is against kiddie porn. Okay, you don't just have to.
He can either stand with us or with the child pornographers.
I just can't believe he said that. You know what I mean? Anyway, no, it's like everybody's against that. I mean, come on now. And now, given the fact that we've just established that the Conservative government can decide who can access this information unilaterally, demand it from the ISPs with no warrant, and it's not just a law enforcement officer, it's whoever Stephen Harper appoints to have that right. Okay. And given the changes of the copyright law, which is Canada will become the first country period to allow for court settlements